Okay, we're doing something a little bit different this time. We're starting out with destruction, not creation. I've got my corset mock-up here, and I broke a lot of bones in this, so I'm actually having to switch it over to steel bones instead of the reed that I was originally hoping to use, just because I really don't want to have to take the final one apart because I've broken, however many bones. So what I have to start with, I have to take all of this edging off, and then I have to destroy various bits of it. I did mark on it like places where I need to take bits in, like there's that. I'm going to take out one of these cording channels. I'm going to move this bit right here up a little bit over the bust just so it curves a little nicer. Just basically I've marked out the spots that need to be adjusted to fit me nicely. And once I've taken it apart, I'll bring you back and we can start, actually cutting out the pattern pieces, hopefully. Okay, so now that I've got all the pieces from the half that I wrote notes on disassembled and all the cording and bones taken out, I'm going to do the same process as in the last video where I just transfer them to the pattern paper, which is why I marked, the lines. Also, I gotta show you my personal cat, I guess. Hi, baby. Okay. So this is Relic. She's not technically allowed on this desk, which is why she's a little hesitant. She is Grandma Cat. She also thinks the phone can pet her, which is why she's rubbing up against it. But she's a darling angel, and I love her dearly, and she's very talkative, so she'll probably be screeching in the background, but it's cute and I love her and I'm not going to dissuade her. So back to this. I needed to take a little bit out of this, so I just pinned it, like I marked where I needed to, how much I needed to take out and everything. I took out one cording channel here just because this was a little wider than I wanted it to be, and took out another little bit here. These two I'm going to just mound up just a little bit at the top to make them a little bit nicer, and this one's going to get one extra boning stripe right there just because it'll look nicer. So I'll have to end up extending the bottoms of these just a little bit, but that should be simple enough. Like I said, I'm just transferring them to the pattern paper at this point, so if you've got questions about that, I will refer you to my previous video on this process. Once we get this done, I'll grab the fabric and we can start dealing with the actual fabric. Okay, these are the fabrics that I'm going to be using. This is a red and black shot silk, which means that the warp threads were black and the weft threads are red. It's very pretty. There's this nice goldish silk, and then there's this pale yellow, and then that's going to be for the lining. Because the thread I'm going to be using for the cording channels and the boning channels and stuff is red silk, I'm going to make the cording pieces out of this just for a bit of pop, because I can. And then the pieces that are boned are going to be out of this, once again, because I can. Alright, I have all the pieces cut out. I'm going with 3 layers for the center back, just because that way it'll have a little more sturdiness for the lacing in the eyelets and stuff that I'm going to have to do. And now comes the fun part where I have to draw in all of the cording channels. Yay! So the reason it's taking me more than a minor eternity to do this cording part of the corset is because I am also doing the world's most tiny backstitching. So it's just a little bit in, and I realize that it's hard to see it, but that's the angle I have to hold it at to be able to do the stitch. So a backstitch is I go a little bit behind where the needle last came out, nip, and then pop out a little bit in front of that, so like so, and then I repeat it forever. This is taking so long. This is panel 5 of 10 that have to get cording channels on them, and as you can see, stitches are minuscule. The wrinkling will disappear once I put the cording in. I finished this piece. This is all nice and corded, and as you can see, the wrinkling basically doesn't exist at this point. These stitches are just here to hold the ends of the cords in until I actually seam it, because to keep them from coming out of the channels, I've overlapped them a little bit on either edge. So these are the pieces that are sewn that don't have cording in them yet. And it's taking so long. I cannot wait to be done with this part of the process. Wish me luck! Okay, so all the pieces are ready for assembly. I'm not going to show much of the recording of the assembly just because I'm doing it primarily while I'm working, and I can't exactly, record while I'm working. That's not a feasible thing. For the center back panels, which is what one of these is, I did something a little funky. On either side of the eyelet space, which is what this is, I put 2 bones. Since this is a triple layer of fabric, I had the space to do 2 boning channels in the same spot. So there's 4 bones right here, and then another here, and etc., etc. This part down here is the hardest part to actually put the bones into, because once this bone goes in, these 2 don't want to. It's really annoying. Also, somehow this corset took like 13 yards of boning, which is absurd. For a single corset, 13 yards? It's nonsense. But the way I'm going to assemble it is I'm going to do a bunch of, the traditional tiny back stitches with some waxed linen thread just because it's nice and sturdy. And I'm also kind of pleased with how tidy the back of this is. Like, you can see where I started new threads, but other than that, it's not, the world's messiest thing or anything. So yeah, these are all the various assorted pieces all grouped up in how they're going to need to go together. This is one side, this is the other. Hopefully, we'll get actual progress soon. That would be amazing. I have to say that the assembly part is taking so much less time. It took me 3 weeks to the day to do all of the cording panels. It's taken me just about 2 weeks to do all the boning and then to assemble it to this point. What I ended up doing for the interior seams was I just turned all of the seam allowance that I left myself really nice and wide, and then I just felled it down because, you know what, it worked. So the next step is I'm going to cut out the binding. That's just going to be long straight strips of a really pretty gold colored silk, and sew that on. Then I've got to do the waist tape, the flossing, the eyelets, and knit the actual lace for this thing. Also, my cat does apparently say hello. Hi, baby. Hi. Please ignore the socks. She stole them. Sitting at my desk working on attaching the binding, I am doing really tiny whip stitching to hold the front of it on because it needs to be as close to it invisible as I can get it. I wouldn't be using black thread, except I'm apparently out of most colors of silk thread. I've got black, and I've got white and gray and buttonhole twist, which are way too heavy for this, and everything else I have is polyester, and I am not putting polyester into this thing. Honestly, I need to get rid of that. But, teeny tiny stitches. Alright, so the binding is done. I am so happy. That just leaves flossing on all of the bone panels and some in the middle of the corded panels, the eyelets, and then I'm going to knit a bunch of lace for the edging of this, and they'll be done! I am so pleased. These are my tentative plans for how I'm going to do the flossing on the assorted pieces. They're not set in stone. This right here is what I'm thinking about for the eyelets, but once again, not really set in stone. I mean, it's going way faster now that I'm done with the making of the panels. The cording panels took 3 weeks total. All of the rest of the progress has been done in the last 2 weeks. So, hey, it's working. So I am so excited. All I have left to do is eyelets and then knit the lace, and I'm done with this thing. All the flossing is done. As you can see, I am physically incapable of picking just one single flossing style. It just does not happen at all. But I'm really pleased with how the color schemes and the patterns and such are coming together in these. And also I cannot wait to be done because I've spent so much time and effort on these. But hey, look! Progress! Alright, here we go, the final product. I ended up having to take off the cloth binding and replace it with leather because turns out even when filed very thoroughly and tip-dipped, metal is still sharp enough to cut through really nice silk. Just sliced right through it. So that was annoying and I had to redo that. But overall, I am super happy with it. I padded out the hip a little bit just to give it that extra hip spring and to give it a little bit more give for anything heavy that might go on the hip, but it feels like wearing like a thunder shirt or something. It's like a nice hug, and I'm so happy with it. I'm going to eventually make and add lace to it, but I am very, very ready to be done with this thing. But yay, we're good.